Yeah, I mean, what we're building for and where we think the future is that brain sensing technology will be as mainstream as an eye test.
Well,
And that means that you will, when you go to your GP and you tell them that you might be depressed or that you are struggling or you think you have ADHD, they'll just say, "Oh, just pop in the room next door, and just do a 15-minute assessment, and then we'll decide what to do after that." Or if you're walking down the street and you feel like your cognition is declining because you're 65 years old and it's something that you want to keep an eye on and you care about, then you walk into a high street brain testing clinic center, you understand your brain function, you get a recommendation about what you need to do about it. Maybe there's a certain intervention that would make sense for you. And we're not that far away from that. In fact, you can already do that with us if you want to, in some ways. That's available and that's what we've built. And we've done it because those are problems that need to be solved. And they are already causing major problems for lots of people. And we think we can help with that. So it is the future, but it's not that far away. And we think that it will be a mainstream part of normal life sooner than you might think.
welcome back to the MedTech 101 podcast, and I'm really excited to be here today because this episode has been in the pipeline for some time. But I'm excited to have this guest here today, and the reason why, and most people listening right now, is that it touches on something that's so crucial in society today, which is mental health, really. And I know many people try to tease my generation saying we're the snowflake generation, but I think mental health has always been there. It's just we're just much better at picking it up today compared to the 1950s. So today I've got Lucas Scherdel, who is the founder of this exciting company. Actually, it's new. They were working in secret, but recently they went public. When I say public, not like as an IPO, but as basically telling people what the company is about. And this company is called Connectome, which basically works by tracking brain health. But how they do that is quite exciting. But without much delay, welcome to the podcast, Lucas.
Thank you so much, Rodney. It's great to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Well, just to get started, just to let the guests know who you are. I'm quite curious about your background because I know you studied biomedical sciences and you worked for Bayer, and then afterwards you worked for WHO, which is quite funny because it's an interesting career you've had, leading up to Connectome. So, what could you tell us about your life, your career, profession, leading to where you are today?
Yeah, amazing question. Thanks for asking it. Basically my whole career I've always been focused on how we could use technology to improve some kind of outcome in the healthcare continuum. So I think very early on in my life realized that I quite enjoyed technology, thought innovation was pretty cool, and always wondered how you could use that to make a kind of lasting impression or a positive difference in the world. So for me, health tech is kind of that perfect sweet spot where those two things intersect. And yeah, I've definitely jumped around a lot. I've done different things. Depending on who you ask, you can call it like a ADHD career, or you could call it a jungle gym career, or you could call it some of my kind of reviewers have said that I'm a triple threat because I've done something where I've worked across the public sector, the private sector, and as an entrepreneur. And so all of those things basically taught me a lot of different things. But I think at the end of the day, when it comes to healthcare and when it comes to building technology and innovation in health, it's such a complex journey. It requires a generalist skill set. It requires a really 360 awareness of what it takes to bring something to the market. And for me, that's basically what I was trying to get. I was trying to figure out what it takes to build something, to create something meaningful, and tick all the boxes to get through it, and give myself the skills, the experiences, the network to be able to make that happen. So that's the common theme that runs through all of it, I would say.
Nice. That's really like encouraging and quite unique. Especially, I mean, I've been doing this podcast for 3 years, and it's rare that I bring on a CEO or a guest here, who has had this sort of like kind of career. And I think it's exciting. And not only do you have an interest in health technology, but it's sort of like the far end. This is not like a normal day to day like MedTech products that comes on the market. And that's what really excited me about it, because I mean, when you look at Connectome, like as you said earlier when we were talking, you guys finished a pre-seed and you raised about 2 million euros. And like in MedTech, most of the money goes to R&D. Like most money that's raised usually ends up in R&D, maybe like continuously improving the product. I mean, like jumping onto like Connectome, I mean, like what could you tell us about the company? Because it's exciting, and how did you end up there? Because obviously, I mean, like it's not something that you think of like just off the top of your mind. It's something that's quite unique. So I'm quite curious to know how your journey to Connectome was, and how did you end up starting the company, and teaming up with some mathematicians, some top scientists, and like was I looked at this at the company site, and a video of how you guys actually work to team up with sort of like your hospitals and stuff. But I don't want to ruin it for the audience, so I'll let you tell us.
Yeah. So I guess the question would be then, how did I get here, and like what I need to found in Connectome? So I guess, I don't really know why. I mean, we can maybe have a think about it, but for some reason, I was fascinated by neuroscience from quite a young age. So I kind of had this inherent feeling that it would be really cool in the future, and that it had this potential to be extremely impactful as a field and as a technology. And I kind of like had this vision for the future, even when I was quite young as a teenager, and thinking, wow, imagine this world where we're going to be able to do things with the brain, and you can read the brain and work with the brain and stuff like that. And so I also understood, I think, from quite a young age that we knew very little about the brain in comparison to the rest of our understanding of the rest of the organs in the body, for example. And that fascinated me. So I studied neuroscience when I went to university. So I actually, you can say, majored in neuroscience and graduated with a bachelor's degree in neuroscience when I was around 21, 22. And that really taught me a lot about the underlying biological mechanisms of the brain. But I have to say, when I was studying at that time, I was left with this feeling like I didn't quite get the thing that I was really looking for. Like back then, neuroscience was very focused on neuropharmacology. It was very, it was very like biomolecular, which is phenomenally interesting, by the way. But I always thought there was this kind of like missing piece of neuroscience that we never got to. Anyway, fast forward, I went and did my career. I went and worked in public health for a while. Then I ended up working in industry. When I was working in industry, I did see some really interesting projects where I was starting to see the convergence of AI and biological signals that were able to read things like mental state or condition of your mental health quite accurately to quite a precise level. For example, I was working at a certain point on a voice biomarker that was using AI to basically predict depression. And so I found that fascinating, and I kind of realized that this world that I'd kind of imagined when I was a little bit younger maybe was actually starting to happen. And then I guess you would call it the world's biggest FOMO moment, where I was like, oh my God, like, I should be doing that. Like, what am I doing? I shouldn't be doing this. I need to do that. That's what I like. That's, like it was like an existential fear of missing out. And I really saw the world that kind of really, this moment that I realized that computational neuroscience is basically the thing that I was always looking for It's the convergence of technology in the brain. And it's incredibly exciting. It's something that I feel completely honored to be a part of, and I just find it the most fascinating field of science that's currently being undertaken by the human race. So that's basically one of the reasons why I started Connectome. It was to be part of that.
And then just to add more clarity for people like listening, actually the significance of the name Connectome, because when I was also reading up on it, it was basically like a mapping that was done of the neurological map of the brain before. So it's not just a name out of nowhere, like it's also a name that's also linked to the brain. And I think it's important to say that because it's not so obvious for the day-to-day listener. But I mean, like building up on that, so you've built this sort of like service, or like it's like a software that works with others, like B2B kind of service. But the key technology there is something they call fNIRS or TD-fNIRS, and I'm trying not to sound to not to confuse anyone, but it basically means like time domain functional near infrared spectroscopy. So it's a bit of a tongue twister. But using that technology, what would you say? Like, how would you explain that in layman terms to people curious about the sort of like the cornerstone of your technology?
Yeah, I'll do that with pleasure. So basically, fNIRS is essentially like an Apple Watch or a wearable sensor like this, which is shining a light into your skin membrane. And what it's doing actually is it's tracking something below there. It is the general concept of the technology. fNIRS in particular is shining a high density red light into your skull. And then what it's doing is it's observing how your blood is moving around in your head and behaving. And in particular, when we observe that using AI and advanced technologies, which are able to capture the signal very, very well, which is the time domain part, we're actually able to observe how the brain activates and observe how the brain behaves under certain conditions. And this gives us kind of this holy grail insight that we've been struggling with for so long, which is like, what's your brain doing when you're doing this thing? It's so simple, but it's really hard to do. And it's one of the things that's really held back neuroscience for so long. It's not the fact that we can't do it, it's the fact that we can't do it at scale, repeatedly, comparably, in a way that's stable, in a way that's robust. And so what we're seeing is the Human Connectome project, which is basically what inspired Connectome, tried to map as many brains as possible under specific conditions to figure out what the brain is doing under certain conditions, and struggled actually to really kind of hit the target, because the instrumentation, the technology behind that they were using is so expensive, it's so complex, it's so hard to create something in two locations that you can compare against each other because the instrumentation is so heterogeneous, blah, blah, blah. And Connectome really was invented or founded with the kind of understanding and the philosophy that we should try and solve this problem using our own ideas to make that happen. How can you actually get as many people as possible to map their brain under specific conditions? And can we do that in a way that serves people and enables them to look inside their brain when they might want to, for one reason or another, whether it be because they're curious or whether it be because they have a specific condition that means that they need to. And that's basically what Connectome is.
Nice. And just to add more clarity as to why what you said is important, is because if anyone's listening, well, the general sort of like consensus or theory is that depression is linked to brain activity. So basically, if you can track certain brain activities, to see which part of the brain is working the most, etc., you can have an idea if there's been an improvement in terms of how we feel, etc. So that's why this is important, and that's why it makes it quite nice, really. And sorry, I always have to simplify things down because obviously I'm excited because I understand everything you're saying, but for some people who might not really understand or appreciate the technology, this helps them even simplify as to the significance of this, and it's quite nice.
Running, like, let's simplify it as much as we can, right? Like, today, if you had a kidney disorder or diabetes, it's quite simple. It's a finger prick test or a blood test, and there's a biomarker that we're looking for. When it comes to the brain, we don't have that simplicity. It doesn't exist. There's no test. There's no brain test for depression. There's no brain test for whether or not you have a complex depression or a simple one. And like, this is a big problem. This is a $1 trillion problem that we face, and we're trying to solve that. And not just for depression. There's myriad of conditions that we want to work on, and we're very interested in the neurodivergent, neurodevelopmental disorders in particular. But yeah, that's the fundamental reason why we exist and what we're trying to do.
No, that's really exciting, and like I couldn't help but ask. I mean, with the way you guys gonna be integrating this human into, well, the way you guys gonna be integrating this into like a human machine interface? Is it gonna have like a cap people wear on their heads? Is it something futuristic? I'm quite
Yes,
excited. I mean,
I wish I had one right here to show you, but I
of
don't.
course.
Um,
It's okay. I
so
mean, even if you don't have it right now, you can always send me the photos, and I'll put it on the YouTube video. So if anyone is listening to the audio version of this podcast, like head over to the YouTube channel and check out if you want to see more photos. But there'll also be links below with all the images and stuff, because it sounds kind of futuristic, something out of like Iron Man and so forth. So it's exciting.
yeah, yes, I mean, for the audio listeners, head over to YouTube and have a look at this extremely fantastic app that I'll show you. Yeah, that's so we use like an already established technology, which is a really cool space future-esque like helmet, which sits around the brain, and shines light in there. And that was developed by some really super ambitious and capable people in America, that have been using it to develop things like new treatments for depression and ways to predict Alzheimer's and dementia. And more are they using it to, or people are using it to do things like read write prediction of the brain, which basically means that you can like write things without actually using your hands. You just use brain signals and read things similarly.
And sorry to cut you, Lucas. I mean, that's I was not even expecting to hear that. I mean, I did a lot of pre-reading. I did a lot of research prior to this in preparing for this episode. But like thinking about how using robotics or whatever without even having to use your limbs actually opens up a whole new field in biomedical engineering in terms of what prosthetics can become, and basically we can basically eradicate disability in a way to a certain degree. So it's quite exciting to hear that, and I couldn't stop my excitement. So that's really great. And yeah, it's okay. I'll let you continue. I just had to say that because it's really really important, and I think it's one of the reasons why I feel good or take pride in having this podcast, because I get to this is it's products and technology like this that makes it quite interesting, because it's always like I'm always learning something new, even though like I've done biomedical engineering and stuff, but there's always some new technology out there, and with a lot of potential. So and I mean, leading on to this, of course I'm gonna let you continue, but it just then makes me question what like the challenges you guys have been facing right now. Do you think it's mostly regulatory? Is it sort of like manufacturing? Is it kind of like scaling? Because I know you guys are based in Switzerland, so obviously that's not the cheapest place to try to manufacture or do things. It's not like you don't have that kind of advantage, but you also have certain advantages being close to where a lot of the capital is, etc. So I'm curious to know as well. So
Yeah, sure. So I mean, We're very lucky in that we're a software company, so we actually, develop software on top of a third-party hardware.
Yeah.
That comes with its own challenges. One of the challenges is developing a third-party hardware. There are market reasons why that makes a lot of sense to do that, but it also is something that a lot of investors find difficult to get their head around, and they hate this kind of dependency. It's called platform dependency risk, and so it flags in a lot of investor conversations. It's something we talk about a lot. But we are designed to overcome that risk, and there are lots of reasons why Connectome is the right company to be building a software layer like that. But really what Connectome is doing is putting together basically all of the world's best cognitive neuroscientists, computational cognitive neuroscientists, and building a software layer that's able to sit on top of different hardwares that read the brain. That's essentially what Connectome is. This software then uses advanced AI machine learning to enrich signal from the brain with context from the outside world, whether it be from wearables, biometric data, behavior data, surveys, stuff like that. And what it does, it then blends it all together and it creates a very robust and stable signal of brain activity. And this is the real uniqueness of what Connectome does. Because it's one of the major challenges, and it sounds like a really simple thing to do, but it's extremely difficult. And one of the things that's really held back the field for so long is that it's hard to create a stable signal of what the brain is doing. It's hard to monitor anything really in the brain, like in a stable way over time. And so Connectome's technology has achieved that. We've been able to create a stable signal of the brain's activity by looking at the way different parts of the brain activate and then enriching it with different context data. That is a challenge in itself. So it sounds like like I mentioned, it sounds like the most simple thing in the world. Surely can't you just observe this line as it goes up and down? It's really not like that. And so we've really got the world's best neuroscientists developing the world's most advanced machine learning in order to get us to the point where we're able to create these very stable longitudinal biomarkers of the brain activity. That's the big challenge. Now that we're able to do that, it unlocks this whole world of applications that you can build on top of that. Okay, so we then move into the what we call the inference application layer. So when you were able to have that capability, what sort of machine learning can you do, and what can it unlock? And essentially what it can do is it can predict things. It can then be used to predict things like what treatment you should be looking at using. It should be used to predict what lifestyle you should be using lifestyle changes you should be undertaking in order to move in a certain direction. There are like a million different applications that you can then build on top of that. And that's kind of where Connectome comes to life, where the connection between hardware and signal and the application layer in the real world. Connectome acts as that bridge between the two, and almost like a marketplace of like inference applications for neuroimaging hardwares.
Nice. That's really exciting, really. And you like you mentioned a lot of things there. Like obviously, I was taking down some notes. But like to understand, like even your business model at the moment is to basically sort of like provide a software which like other research centers can then just implement into their existing technology to track people's health, and people can just go there from time to time to see if they're actually they're progressing in terms of their mental health care. And then in the future, the potential in the future is for you guys to go to hardware and basically start to create sort of like a B2C, like component that people can buy and take home and wear, and then check themselves every single day to see how they're feeling. And then but then in terms of like the as much as we like it's quite hard and stuff, like what how have you found like the regulatory aspects of this? Like has it been one of the biggest challenges besides other things that you might have faced, or what's the reception when you speak to there's like leading scientists or top doctors in these hospitals or research institutes? What's their approach to this? Is it one of like optimism or one of pessimistic approaches? Like what would you say? I'm just curious.
Yeah, great questions. Regulatory is core to developing anything in this space. So it's something we thought about from the very beginning, how we would navigate it. We've been extremely fortunate in that we've been so well received by the scientific community um, in what we're trying to build. And I think that the reason why is that they see that they understand the problem that we're trying to solve, and they know that someone needs to do something about it. And they are fully on board with our attempt to do that. And we work really closely with the scientific community to do that. For example, we have a large-scale healthy population study at Imperial College London, which is just concluding, where we looked at 100 people's healthy brains over a period of 4 to 6 months and scanned it repeatedly. And, with this, what we found is that the scientific community basically just threw support at it, contributing things like master students, like expertise, help, because so many people wanted to see this study happen, because they're like, why have we never done it? Like, why is no one doing this more? So that's been brilliant. In terms of the regulatory question, it's it's complex and it's difficult to get anything to market in the healthcare space. I'll tell you the reason why. Investors like to see things de-risked before they invest. And one of the ways of de-risking is revenue. It's making money, it's selling products. Regulators don't like people to sell things that haven't gone through strict regulatory approval. So there's this kind of valley in between point A and point B when you're trying to launch healthcare innovation on the market, which is really tough. Investors don't like investing in that stage, and regulators don't like to see you making revenue. So, it's one of the reasons why we don't see that many healthcare innovations coming to the market. So from the beginning, Connectome always took this approach that we would have to make revenue, we would have to be able to sell products. Luckily, neuroscience is quite a wide-ranging and versatile field, and there are lots of things you can do with neuroscience. One of the things you can do with neuroscience is not necessarily look at diseases, it's not necessarily look at whether or not you're sick or well, but it's actually looking at how you function, the way we use the word function. So you can do functional testing without certain market approvals. It's the same as like doing an IQ test, but you're basically doing an IQ test while we're looking at the brain. It's basically the same thing. You don't need regulatory approval to do an IQ test. You don't need regulatory approval to do an IQ test while you're wearing an Apple Watch, and then we tell you what the score is when you're doing an IQ test. And that's basically Connectome's first product, is really helping people to understand like how they perform and how their brain functions while they perform. And so our first, when you talked about what our business model was, like we developed an inference model for brain function, which looks at executive function of the brain, and uses an inference model to predict how your lifestyle behavior contributes to that performance. And then our first product is basically the ability to use that in your own contexts. And there are lots of people that want that for different reasons, whether it be for performance, whether it be for, wellness and well-being, whether it be for self-understanding and actualization, or longevity. There are lots of people that are interested in that technology. And, we're really pleased and happy with our first product. It proves that what we're doing works. The idea is now we move into disease pathways and more regulated spaces in order to create even more value for everyone involved.
Nice, nice. That's really nice, and it's always an interesting juxtaposition between regulatory and investors because everyone wants to do different things, and it's like 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 two teams tagging a rope between each other, and you have to try to find a balance to keep both people happy. So yeah, I mean, towards like coming to the end of this, like podcast episode, which has been really exciting. Like I'm curious, because everything you've said today already sounds futuristic for a lot of people. A lot of people will probably not were not aware that this is where we are today. So the question is, like, where do you think the future is going to be? I mean, if what this is where we are today, what do you think, mental health tracking and like evaluation is going to look, in 10 to 15 years time? And again, like feel free, you can go as science fiction as you want to answer this question. It's entirely open ended. Just I'm curious as well to know, because my mind is kind of blown as well, so thank you.
Yeah, I mean, what we're building for and where we think the future is that brain sensing technology will be as mainstream as an eye test.
Well,
And that means that you will, when you go to your GP and you tell them that you might be depressed or that you are struggling or you think you have ADHD, they'll just say, "Oh, just pop in the room next door, just do a 15-minute assessment, and then, we'll decide what to do after that." Or if you're walking down the street and you feel like your cognition is declining because you're 65 years old and it's something that you want to keep an eye on and you care about, then you walk into a high street brain testing clinic center, you understand your brain function, you get a recommendation about what you need to do about it. Maybe there's certain intervention that would make sense for you. And we're not that far away from that. In fact, you can already do that with us if you want to, in some ways. That's available and that's what we've built. And we've done it because those are problems that need to be solved. And they are already causing major problems for lots of people. And we think we can help with that. So it is the future, but it's not that far away. And we think that it will be a mainstream part of normal life sooner than you might think.
nice, nice, nice. That's really exciting, and yeah, I mean, thank you very much for coming on the podcast today, Lucas. I think it's been really exciting and quite mind-boggling, and even at some points I couldn't even hold back my own excitement with everything you're saying. So yeah, and I guess like if people now want to reach out to you, if people listening to this want to reach out, I mean, where can they find you? Like, are you on LinkedIn? Like, what's your website? Which conferences do you attend? Etc.
Yeah, so you can find us at www.connectome.health. Myself, I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to me. Conferences, I have conferences that I like, but I'm always open to more. So I'd love to receive information to the best ones, especially if it means working with people that are really interested in deploying neurotechnology in their products and services.
Nice. All right, cool. Cheers. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks so much, Rodney. Take care.